Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be unveiling my first ever 2024 U.S. House of Representatives predictions. It is February of 2023, almost March, that I am recording this. So we are, just under 2 years away from, the 2024 elections. A lot of things will likely change. I'm sure that ratings are almost certain to change in a lot of these battleground, districts. I think we're going to see a very, very competitive race for the House, but this is basically a prediction and, kind of a timestamp as of where I think the fight for the control of the chamber, stands right now. But before we get into that, I wanted to, I hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you're having a great weekend. Make sure to like the video if you haven't already. If you enjoy this kind of content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And yeah, share the video with some people you think would enjoy it. Yeah, I guess right before we get into the prediction, we'll talk about a couple of things. I'm gonna be discussing, or I guess we'll kind of talk about where the national environment, where the country, seems to align with, which party seems to have the upper hand as of right now. Nationally speaking, of course, by the end of this final prediction, you'll see who I think is which party I think will win the House. But we had a couple of elections this past Tuesday, and they were pretty good for Democrats. So first, there was a special election in Virginia's 4th congressional district. This is in the Richmond area. So what happened here is that Don McEachin, the former representative from this congressional district, who got reelected, in November of last year, unfortunately passed away due to colon cancer. Just a couple of weeks after his reelection. So there was a special election to replace him. This is a solid Democratic district, so it was obviously going to was going to stay blue. But what ended up happening here is that, this is a district that voted for Joe Biden, by 35, somewhere around their points in 2020. And if you look back at, the 2022 election results, you can see that McEachin only beat his Republican opponent. Actually, I'm not exactly sure if that's the exact. Yeah, I think this is a more exact look at the results because some of these I don't think have been completely updated. But either way, basically, McEachin defeated his Republican opponent by around 30 points. You know, uh, so, pretty impressive margin, less than what Biden won it by. And so, now that there's a special election, you may, I guess, one of the excuses, or one of the, not the excuses, but one of the, things about special elections is that, they can produce pretty weird results. And, usually they tend to have more Democratic leaning environments than the general. So, McClellan won by around 50 points, and this is a really good result for Democrats. They had a large turnout advantage. It was not a surprise at all that they won it, obviously, but the margin that they won it by was very, very impressive, and I think that this is in a state that voted Republican for governor just a couple of years ago, and that has it's basically its midterms coming up, its state midterms, I guess you could say, coming up this year. I think Democrats in Virginia should be pretty optimistic about taking back the House of Delegates and keeping their majority in the state Senate. So that's that with that, or that's it. With Virginia, but also in Wisconsin, there was the primary election for the Supreme Court race that will be taking place just a month from now in early April. Basically, what ended up happening here is that the Supreme Court elections are in most cases nonpartisan. In Wisconsin, they are. And so the liberal nominee, or liberal candidate Janet Protasewicz, I believe is how you say it. She won the at large. She won a pretty big victory overall because there was a lot of vote splitting. But she was essentially she's essentially the Democratic candidate in this race. If and Daniel Kelly used to be a former judge. He was the Republican the conservative candidate. And what ended up happening here is that he and Jennifer Doro, the other conservative candidate who was more moderate, split the vote, and Kelly ended up advancing to the general. He was, he was a former justice, and he lost his reelection in 2020 by, I think it was 10 points. So yeah, he's another good candidate. He's, a pretty Trumpy, I guess, kind of Trump. He's in the Trump wing of the party. But if you combine the liberal votes if you combine Protasiewicz and Everett Mitchell's votes, and the same with Kelly and Doro, you'll see the Democrats actually won the overall, popular vote here. They had an 8 point, advantage over Republicans, and that's very good because Wisconsin's a state that only voted for Biden by less than a point. It reelected Ron Johnson in November, and it also only reelected Tony Evers. I shouldn't say only because it was pretty impressive, but he only won his reelection by around 3 points. So. Needless to say, looking pretty good for Democrats. I think they're going to win the Supreme Court race, although it's not a lock. It's not a lock. But without further ado, we're already 6 minutes in. Geez. All right. I should probably get started. So in Alabama, there are no competitive seats here. Alaska, Mary Peltola, is in the red is the Alaska's at large congressional district is the reddest, district with a Democratic incumbent. So you would think Peltola would be pretty vulnerable, and she could be. I think if Republicans, nominate a good candidate like Nick Begich, they could make the race more competitive. But Peltola is very popular in the state. She has a very unique brand. I think she's going to be able to hold on, and I think that she, may end up, becoming a member of the U.S. Senate in the future. I think she has a really good, I think she has a long career ahead of her. She could, be in the House, Don Young for a very, very long time, and I would not be super surprised. Anyways, in Arizona, we have a couple of competitive seats here. The second, well, I'll mention the fourth district. Greg Stannon's in a Biden plus 10 seat. Despite it, Arizona on the House level not being so great for Democrats, he won by more than Biden did. It's a left trending district. I don't think much is going to happen here. I think Stannon, will win by over 15 points. And Eli Crane's district, this is the second district. Tom O'Halloran was the Democratic incumbent here who lost to Crane in 2022. I don't think I think it's under 15, but it is a larger margin than last time. Now for the two really competitive districts, or the true battlegrounds. Sorry about the ads on, the screen here. But anyways, we have two really competitive districts in Arizona. Both of them are Biden districts. Both of them have Republican incumbents, and I think that I'm going to split them. First of all, I think that David Schweikert is going to lose his reelection. I think this is a lean Democratic, seat. This is, the first flip, I guess you could say, of, my that's, throughout the video. And this is a left trending district. It will shift left pretty much no matter what ends up happening. Schweikert is a decent incumbent, but he is scandal plagued, and he had a the Democrats by the end of 2022 didn't really seem like they were well positioned to beat him, and yet Jevin Hodge, their candidate, almost came within a point of flipping the seat. So I think in as Arizona shifts farther to the left, and I guess as evidence, I guess evidence for this leftward trend is that Mark Kelly in the Senate race won it by 7 points. I don't think Schweikert's going to lose by 7. I think it's going to be more like 2, maybe less. But I do think he's an underdog. He'll outperform or he'll overperform, the Republican nominee for president, but I don't think it'll be enough to give him another term. So that's a pickup. Juan Ciscomani, he's a decent incumbent. He only won by around 2 points, so he underperformed my expectations. I had this as likely red. Um, it's a Biden district. It's, pretty, some parts of it, it includes some of the Tucson area, which is shifting left, and then it has some rural areas. So yeah, it's got some parts of the suburbs of Tucson, is what I meant. But it's a pretty competitive district, although Ciscomani, I think, he's a decent incumbent. I think he knows how to win. I think that he is, the kind of Republican that does well in Arizona, very moderate, I guess not in your face conservative is how I would put it. Arkansas, nothing there. California, we have a lot of competitive districts. I'm just gonna list off a couple of them here since I don't really think they're they're noteworthy but not really worth our time. Josh Harder, he will win by a likely margin. Jim Costa, he underperformed a lot this year. This is a Biden plus 20 seat or last year. Yeah, this voted for Biden by 20 points. It's a pretty blue district though, and the Central Valley, of California was pretty bad for Democrats. Also, Julia Brownley will be unlikely, and so will Mike Levin. I think that all these are likely seats for the Democrats. For the Republicans, they only have one likely seat, and it is the 40th district. I was going to put this seat as safe, but I think it's still somewhat. I don't think Young Kim's going to win by over 15 points. She's a really good incumbent, though. She's, very, very popular here. She's going to be fine. This is a Biden district, and she won by 14 points last time. I think it'll be a little bit less, but either way, uh, going to be a very very impressive victory for her. In the 45th district, Michelle Steele. Not a great incumbent, but she's in a Biden plus 7 seat that's right trending. She's a she's not nearly as moderate as Kim, but she's not a terrible incumbent either. She had a bad opponent last year in Jay Chen. I think her opponent this time, it looks like it's going to be this the person running on the Democratic side seems to be I think her name's Kim Huynh. She I've heard some good things about her, or at least she seems like a good candidate. So maybe this is a flip for Democrats, but I think that Steele starts out as a favorite. Ken Calvert, this was a much closer race than it really should have been. This is a Trump plus one district that's left trending. Calvert only won by around 5 points, and he used to overperform the Republican. He overperformed Trump by 7 points in the old district in 2020. I think Trump won the old district by 7. Calvert won by what was it, 14, something like that. So him only outperforming Trump by 3 points, or almost 5. uh that was a pretty bad, that was a pretty big shift. And I think Will Rollins is a good candidate for the Democrats. I think he runs again. This could easily flip, but right now I'll give Calvert the advantage. I think Southern California is more Republican down ballot. Speaking of Southern California, Katie Porter is retiring to run for U.S. Senate, so she's leaving this seat behind. She underperformed this year. She won by basically the margin I thought she'd win by. She won by, I think, 3.5 points. Harley Ruda is the presumptive Democratic candidate. He used to represent this area before Michelle Steele kicked him out. There was a lot of weird redistricting in California. So Porter's district used to kind of be where Young Kim's is, and she was kind of up here. It's weird. Anyways, it looks like this is Biden plus 11 seat. It should stay blue, but not guaranteed. Now looking at the third district, I think this is left trending. Kevin Kiley is will win. Like Young Kim and a lot of these other Republicans will overperform Trump at the top of the ballot. I think he'll be the nominee, or DeSantis. But I think it narrows up to like a just under 5 points. Mike Garcia, I think there's potential for him to lose. Christy Smith doesn't look like she's going to run again, which is really good news for Democrats. I guess that some CEO of some former, I guess some former businessman. I think his name's Mike Bridgewater is running, and he seems like a good candidate, but I would still give the edge to Garcia. He seems to be a good candidate, although we have only seen him go up against Christy Smith, who was a pretty bad candidate. So I'd be interested to see how much his victories were because of her or because of his own candidacy. I think it's a mix, but it'd be interesting to see which one's more was more of the factor. The 13th district, I got this one wrong. In 2022, I said Adam Gray was going to win this district. It actually elected a Republican, this Biden plus 11 seat. John Duarte, or Duarte, I'm not exactly sure how you say it, is the Republican's name. He won, mostly because of, I think, he ran a good campaign, to his credit, but he also had really, there was a really low Hispanic turnout in the Central Valley, which really destroyed Democrats, and the governor race, certainly dragged down Adam Gray here. I think Duarte, does well, but I still think that he ends up losing. Could be a lean blue seat, but I'm just being cautious. And then the 22nd, another seat I got wrong. David Valadao is a decent incumbent. Rudy Salas is running again, and he's a good candidate, but I don't think that he is going to be able to knock off Valadao. He's a proven incumbent. I think that he holds on. Colorado, I have a couple of, I have a hot take here. Not the 8th district. I think Yadira Caraveo is going to win re-election. Colorado's a left-trending state. I think she wins by a little bit more this time. Lauren Boebert, though, I know that a lot of people are going to give me heat for this, but I think she loses. I've seen a lot of people saying it's lean red, that Joe Day, was the person who dragged Boebert down because he did really badly with rural voters. But here's the thing. O'Day was probably the best Republican, that could have been put up against Michael Bennet. He lost by 15 points. The shifts in the Denver suburbs were not because of him. They were because the state's just moving left, and there's not a lot that he can do about that he could have done about it. Now the rural areas, you can make an argument. Okay, the rural areas, he probably was not the most exciting candidate for the more Trumpy base, but at the same time, Boebert, is a very controversial incumbent. This is a Trump plus 8 seat. She really should have, won by at least 5. To be honest, and Adam Frisch, really came really close. And I know that both parties are going to be more engaged here, and that the repeat candidate syndrome usually hurts. Usually backfires on the party. So Frisch could lose, but Adam Frisch could lose. He's running again. But I think he wins. I think Colorado shifts left, and I think Boebert really hasn't been moderating. I don't see a reason. A very good, a good enough reason to call it the favorite. Uh, in Connecticut, Jahina Hayes, she's going to win re-election most likely. George Logan was a good candidate for the GOP, but he was not good enough. And in a Democratic leaning year, Connecticut should be more polarized. Delaware, nothing there. Florida will run through these seats really quickly. I think Florida as a whole, the popular vote for the House will get bluer from 2022. I think Democratic turnout was really bad in Florida. It's not going to be anything special next time around, but I don't think it will be as bad. Darren Soto, I think, will win by a little bit more, but this is a right trending area, so he could potentially go down by the end of the decade. Florida 13. This one could get interesting. I think the Tampa area will go back in favor of Democrats. But I still think Anna Paulina Luna will win. And Maria Salazar, I think, with trends in the right in the Miami area, I think is going to be able to win by a safe margin this time. She's a really good incumbent. She should be fine. And then the 22nd district, I think Miami's kind of a wild card because of Hispanics shifting towards incumbents, which could help Democrats down ballot if Biden, does better with them than he did in 2020. But I think, Florida's going to relatively stay the same. Jared Moskowitz, he had a pretty underwhelming performance. I don't know if this district's going to get blue or not. I think he's, a favorite, the favored candidate, but he had a pretty bad performance. And it was because of the red wave in Florida. But this is a Biden plus. I thought it was 14 points. I guess it's 13. But he only won by 5. So maybe it's a little bit more this time with Democratic turnout being up, but I don't know. And turnout will be up for both parties because it's a presidential year, but I'm not exactly sure. But I think he's. I think Moskowitz is the favorite. In Georgia, Sanford Bishop. This is a right trending seat. If he does retire, this could get more competitive. But I think Democrats have a pretty good grip on the district, and I think he's gonna probably run again. The sixth district, Rich McCormick, this is safe right now. It's more Republican down ballot. Don't pay too much attention to it right now, but by the end of the decade, with Atlanta shifting left, maybe it's competitive. Hawaii, nothing there. Idaho, nothing there. Illinois, we got a couple of competitive seats. Sean Casten, likely not going to be super competitive. Same with Lauren Underwood. Eric Sorensen in Illinois 17. I think this is an area that this is one of the seats where I think Democrats are going to do worse than they did in 2022. I think as a whole, the country is going to, shift towards to the left from 2022. I think Democrats will win the popular vote, but as of right now, I think Sorensen's the favorite, but he's not a great candidate. The seat's blue or down ballot though, and so I think he should be fine. It's Biden +8. He won by 4, so he should probably be able to hold on. Indiana won another right trending seat. Frank Mervin's not a great incumbent. If Jennifer Ruth Green runs again, she could make it a race, but you know, I still think it's not right trending enough to flip in 2024, at least as it seems. I bet it against Mervin in last year, and I don't think it obviously didn't work out too well. So I think he's going to be fine. Uh, in Iowa, I think another state that will shift right. Marionette Miller Meeks and Ashley Hinson will hold on. Zachnon, I think, will expand his margin of victory. He's a good candidate. If Cindy Axony runs again, she could make it a race. It'll be competitive either way, but I think Nunn is the unequivocal favorite as of right now. Kansas, nothing here. Sharice Davids, I think, will be safe. The fact that this district got, bluer, that she won by more in a much redder district in 2022 than, 2020. Basically what I mean is her district was a lot bluer in 2020 than it was in 2022, and yet she exceeded her 2020 margin to victory. But I think, I think the suburbs of Kansas City are really shifting left. It could be under 15, but right now I think it's safe to say it is a safe blue seat. I don't want to complicate things. Kentucky, nothing there. Louisiana, nothing there. Maine, Jared Golden, another Democrat I underestimated in the working class area. He's a really good incumbent. The seat could flip if he runs for Senate, if Angus King retires, but I don't think he's going to. He doesn't. I don't think that's his intention. I think he's going to continue serving. I think the margin will narrow up because it's right trending and it's a presidential year. And I think Republicans will try to beat Golden. This time it won't be like 2020, but they won't. I don't think they'll try as hard in 2022. So I think it'll get closer. It'll be like 5 points, but he'll still win decisively. Maryland, David Trone's unlikely, and I think Andy Harris is as well. He's not a great incumbent. He only won by 11 in a Trump plus 14 seat. I think that's what it was, or maybe 15, roughly 15. But either way, both are going to hang on. Not a lot to say in Maryland. Massachusetts, nothing there. Michigan, we got a couple of competitive seats. Hillary Schulten in the third district, I think, is safe. I know that might be a hot take to some, but it's a left trending district. Peter Meyer was a good incumbent, but he, lost his primary to John Gibbs, who then lost by 13 points in the general election, a lot more than I thought he would. You know, Grand Rapids is just so left trending, and I think no matter what happens in Michigan, even though it'll probably be more competitive, or the House seats will be, better for Republicans this year than they were last year, or 2024 than they were last year. Uh, I think Schulten will expand her margin of victory. And then we got a couple more competitive seats. John James really underperformed my expectations. This was supposed to be a lean red. Most people had it as likely. Carl Marlinga did a lot better than expected, but you can make the case that it was because Michigan Democrats just did real exceptionally well last year. I think he holds on, but and I heard that he's not running for Senate, so that makes it harder for Democrats to pick this up, but it's not impossible. It's a Trump plus one seat. It's not that hard, but the fact that they couldn't win it, I know they had a really underfunded candidate, but the fact that they couldn't win it, in that good of an environment, it's concerning for them against James. So I think right now I call him the favorite, not overwhelmingly though. Dan Kildee, I'm stuck between lean and likely. This district's Biden +2. Kildee's a really good incumbent though, and I think he's going to be able to hold on. He'll lose eventually, but I think that he's, you know, I think I heard that Bill Schwett's son. He was the former Attorney General of Michigan, and he was Whitmer's 2018 opponent. I think his son is going to run in this district. At least that's what I've been hearing. I don't know if the Schwett name does not, I guess carry a lot of energy. So and I think Kildee, is just a really good incumbent. I think he's going to be able to hold on, maybe by a little bit less, but I don't know. Eliza Slotkin, I think she's going to run for Senate, but there's still the chance that she hasn't announced yet, so maybe she doesn't. And the fourth district will be likely this is left trending, but it won't be super competitive. The seventh, this might be a toss up, without Slotkin running, which I think is what we're going to see. It's Biden plus one, so yeah, I'd actually have this tilt D if she doesn't run for re-election and she goes for the Senate seat, which I think will happen, but right now, gonna keep it as lean D without any word from her. Minnesota, Brad Finstad in the first district will win by a likely margin. I think it'll be under 15, but practically safe. The second, there was a lot of talk last year about Angie Craig losing because of the legal weed party candidate splitting the vote, which is kind of what happened in 2020. She didn't lose, but she came pretty close to losing. She underperformed Biden by a lot. So I think but she won by 5 this year. I think the suburbs. I think we're more focused, on issues like abortion and stuff. And I think the issue of abortion won't be as big in 2020 in 2024 as it was last time, but it'll still have a lot of relevance as it always has. Um, you know, so I think Craig, and it's a Biden plus 7 seats. So I mean, I really don't think it's going to be that interesting. Mississippi, nothing there. Missouri, only district here is Ann Wagner's. It was under fit. It was like a 12 point victory, I think, in 2022. Yeah, it's Trump plus 8. It's not too competitive. She'll hold on to it, but I think it'll be under 15. Then in Montana, this district, the first district, was a lot closer than I thought it would be. This one, Ryan Zinke, this is a left trending district, but Zinke is a really bad candidate. This is a Trump plus 7 seat. He only won by 3 points in a race Democrats didn't really fund. I think it stays red for now. If he runs for Senate, that could really, bring down the top of the ticket. Although Montana's, good for, I know the top of the ticket's presidential, but you know, there's still some correlation with Senate and House. But Montana is known for ticket splitting, so maybe it would be better if Zinke ran for Senate, although he would lose that race, I think, to John Tester. But right now, I think Zinke is the narrow favorite in this race. Nebraska, the first district, Mike Flood's district, could be under 15, but I don't think so. Don Bacon, I'm really split on this one. This one's a true toss-up, but I think I will give it to the Democrats. It's a left-trending district, and Bacon's, he's a moderate incumbent, but he's not super moderate. He's, pretty pro-life, and I think he's Tony Vargas, the Democratic candidate in 2022, will probably run against him again. I think he'll beat him out this time. Uh, I think that he will get dragged down by, Trump at the top of the ticket, who again I think will be the nominee. But if it's DeSantis, maybe not. Um, so this one I'm not super sure about. Bacon's a really good incumbent, so he could absolutely pull it off. But right now, I will give it to the Democrats. In Nevada, likely seats are the first and fourth district. These, Nevada seats are, not super competitive. The third district, Susie Lee is not a great incumbent, but I think she holds on. This is another city I got wrong in 2022, and yeah, I think that it's going to be in a similar margin of victory to her, or for her, maybe a little bit more or less. Who knows? In New Hampshire, Ann Custer's seat, that is likely. She won by 12. It's a Biden plus I think 9 seat or 10, whatever. Either way, going to be pretty solid for her. In the first district, I think Chris Pappas is going to hold on. He is a pretty good incumbent. The only reason it's lean and not likely is because Matt Mowers may run and he's a decent candidate. I think New Hampshire, is a lot more. Has a much better opinion, is a lot more fond of moderate Republicans than Trumpers. But yeah, that's where I stand on that. Sorry that this video is going on for so long. This is just really hard to get through. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. Josh Gottheimer, I think, will be in the likely column. He'll win for sure, but it'll be by less than 15. Tom Keene, I think, this is a Biden plus 4 seat. It's suburban and left trending, but Keene's a really good candidate for the area. He had an underperforming performance last year, but not it wasn't too far away from what I expected. I thought it would be like 3 or 4. It was about 3. So I think Keene holds on by a little bit less, but or Keene wins by a little bit less, but he still keeps the seat red. In New Mexico, the first district is a likely seat, safe by probability, likely by margin. The second district, if a court case in New Mexico gets passed, it could potentially revert this seat back into a red leaning district. But Gabe Vasquez, I don't think that's going to happen. And Gabe Vasquez, he's not a great candidate, but he was good enough to win. I thought he'd lose by like two. This was a seat I had as lean red. It was tilt blue. Uh, so I think he's going to be able to hold on. Yvette Harrell, I think, is running, and or at least I thought was running. So I think this seat will be competitive for sure, and it could flip, but right now I think Vasquez is the favorite in New Mexico too. New York, this was a bright spot for Republicans last year. I think that gives Democrats a lot of room to grow in that in New York. I think that this is going to be, if they're going to win back the House, it's going to be through sweeping New York. And we'll go to Long Island. Nick LaLota is going to win. This is Lee Zeldin's old district. It won't be by 11 points like last time, but it'll still be over five. And then in the third district, George Santos. I don't think I need to talk about. This seat could be likely, but I'm just going to be cautious just because of I think a lot of people have counted out Santos already. I certainly don't think he's going to win. He might not even, he might have to resign or make it past, he might not make it past the primary. He's got a massive obstacle course ahead of him to win, and I don't think he's going to be able to do it. But again, complacency, as we've learned, in 2022 and 2016, does not lead to good results. If Democrats take this race for granted, they could lose it. Personally, I don't think they will. I find it really hard to see Santos winning. This could be likely even. But yeah, he's not a good incumbent, very very vulnerable. He really screwed up his career. And then in New York's fourth, this is the bluest seat that's held by a Republican in the House. Anthony Desposito, I think, could be a similar brand of Republican like John, or not John, David Valadao or Mike Garcia. But again, Republicans had a really, an unusually good year in New York, and I think that that's part of the reason why Desposito won. If I definitely think he has a better chance than Santos. But I think it's Biden plus 14. So I think that he is going to be able to, or he will not be, reelected. Although it's not impossible. He still I think is he has a fighting chance. In the 18th, Pat Ryan was really the only Democrat to win a competitive seat in New York in 2022. I think that continues, and yeah, that's where I stand on Pat Ryan. And in the rest of these districts, I will put them all as teal blue. So this would mean Democrats would have five pickups in New York, which I'm a little uncomfortable with, but I think the national environment guarantees it. Mike Lawler, good incumbent, but again, I think I heard Mondaire Jones might come back to this district, which he used to be from, but obviously it went down to New York, and he lost the primary to, I think it was Dan Goldman. So if he runs against Mike Lawler, I think he wins, and I think that's where this race is leaning towards. I think it's a Biden plus 10 seats, so I think that's going to be it. Brandon Williams. This was actually the only Republican seat, or the only House seat in 2022 in New York that I've overestimated Republicans in. Um, I think Williams loses. It's more Republican down ballot, but John Katko is a unique fit for the area, and I think that he's gonna. I think that Williams is gonna lose to probably Francis Knoll. And then in the 19th, this seat is bluer than the rest of the country, but it's a pretty important bellwether. I think Mark Molinaro is a really good incumbent. This is going to be definitely the hardest seat to predict, but I think right now considering how he underperformed national partisanship, and seeing that that was the same case for Trump in 2020 in the district, I think that makes the case that this seat will flip blue. In North Carolina, we'll get redistricting here, so and it looks like Republicans pretty much have and you know. A really good, pretty much have, the complete upper hand here. So I think that looks like they're going to draw out Wiley Nickel, Jeff Jackson, and depending on what happens, I think they'll probably take care of Kathy Manning by splitting up Wake County, and Don Davis. This seat is right trending. They'll probably make it into like a narrow Trump district. So I think that he narrowly loses. So North Carolina, a lot of Republican pickups here. North Dakota, nothing there. Ohio, 7th district will be likely. We'll have redistricting here, which will affect the results. That's why I'm going to put the first district in lean instead of likely, because I'm not sure what Republicans will do about Greg Landsman. I think that the Cincinnati area is just becoming so much more Democratic. I think the Republicans are going to be really focused on winning, the 13th and maybe the 9th, that they'll just forget about Landsman. They don't have a good bench here. Steve Shabbat said he's not going to run again, so. I think Landsman, is pretty safe. It might even become a safe blue district in the new map. The ninth district, they'll try to draw on Marcy Copter, but she's a really good incumbent. I know J.R. Majewski was a bad candidate. He may run again, and if he does, this is probably likely, but not by, Copter won't win by 13 points. I think there's very little chance of that happening again, but I do think she holds on. She's a proven incumbent, and Republicans would have to make this like a Trump plus 20 district to, really, shut her out for good. The 13th, I think, is the most likely to be gerrymandered. This is Tim Ryan's old seat, now held by Democrat Amelia Sykes. She, looks like it looks like Madison Gilbert, the old Republican candidate in 2022, who, lost by 5, is going to run again. I think that that's enough for me to say that this is tilting towards Sykes right now, but depending on redistricting, that could change my mind. In Oklahoma, nothing. Oregon, the 6th and 4th are likely, not a lot to say here. Gloria Shabazz de Remer, I think she's a decent candidate, but again, Republicans did uniquely well in Oregon last year, and also the incumbent, Democrat got primaried out by a progressive. Kurt Schrader's not going to run again, but, and hopefully Jamie McLeod Skinner won't be the candidate again. But, it's a presidential year, so I think Shabazz de Remer goes down in, that district. Pennsylvania, first and 10th are likely the only way. The Fitzpatrick, his district goes Democratic as if he retires. Um, 17th, Chris Deluzio. This is a Biden plus 6 district. He will win by a lean margin. And then the 8th and 7th, tough calls, but I think Cartwright and Wild are able to hold on. I think that they're proven incumbents. Cartwright better than Wild, but his seat's right trending, so he could lose, and so could Wild. Um, in Rhode Island, this district could only be uh, I'm gonna put it as likely only because maybe Alan Fung runs again, but besides that, not a lot to say here. South Carolina will get some redistricting, but it is going to be a lean red seat for right now. Although this could become, like a Biden district, and that might be difficult for Nancy Mace to defend, but you never know. Uh, and South Dakota, Tennessee, nothing there. Although the fifth could be likely, but I don't really feel like putting it there. Texas, Monica De La Cruz, I think she's going to do well. I think the Rio Grande Valley as a whole is going to trend more Republican in 2024, although I do think, Democrats will continue to do better in the suburbs. I put Cuellar in and Gonzalez in lean seats. Only reason Cuellar's in here is because there's a chance he loses the primary to someone like Jessica Cisneros, who I think would lose the general election, so that, makes him more vulnerable, but I think he wins as of right now. We'll have to see what happens. Uh, Gonzalez is not a great candidate, and if Myra Flores runs again, maybe this drops below 5. It's right trending. It's Biden plus 16, but, he only won by like 9, which is more than I thought, but you never know what might happen here. So, yeah, that's Texas. In Utah, nothing there. Vermont, nothing there. Virginia, we have a couple seats here. Hung Kao came pretty close in the 10th district, but Jennifer Wexton will win again. It's Biden plus 19. Don't really see a scenario in which she goes down. Jen Kiggins, a decent incumbent in, Virginia Beach, but I think that she's going to, I think she'll be able to hold on, although the seat is swinging. It's, left trending, so maybe she's able to win, but I think she's more of a Youngkin type Republican, so I think that's enough to get her across the finish line. And then Spanberger could be likely. I've seen a lot of people putting this as likely D, at least the Sabato and or at least the Crystal Ball and the Cook Political Report have been, but we'll see. I think right now Spanberger is the clear favorite, though. In Washington, we have two competitive seats here. Kim Schreier is going to win by a likely margin, and then in the third district, Marie Perez winning was a shock to all of us. It's fitting because I said that Republicans might, have a problem with Joe Kent being their candidate in the future, but just not, in 2022. And it was funny how fitting how that was how what ended up happening is that Marie Perez ended up beating Kent. Surprisingly, I think she does it again. I think that Kent will be the nominee. I think Republicans are still really unable to pick the right candidates. I think even if Jamie Herrera Butler runs again, maybe she wins the primary, maybe not. Right now, I'm leaning towards a no. I've heard rumors she might run for Washington governor. So I think Perez is able to hold on. And in West Virginia, nothing, although Alex Mooney is retiring to run for Senate, and it looks like Shelley Moore Capito's son is going to run for this seat and probably win. But either way, it stays red. Then in Wisconsin, the final state with competitive seats. Both of these are lean red because they could get redistricted if Democrats win the Supreme Court election, which looks likely. Which would give them control of the court. So maybe they redraw these seats. They split Milwaukee down the middle. Maybe they give Derek Van Orden a little bit of the second district. A little bit of the Milwaukee area. But either way, going to be right now lean Republican. And then in Wyoming, nothing. So as you can see in the final map, I have Democrats narrowly winning the House, 219 to Democrats to 216 Republicans. Democrats net a gain of 6 seats in the House. Yeah, sorry that this video was so long. Did not mean for it to be this long, but again, it's a house prediction. I guess that's kind of my excuse here. But yeah, I'm gonna try to make the videos a little bit shorter in the future. Don't get me wrong, this is a very early look, so don't get too mad if you disagree on something. We're gonna have we have plenty more time on our hands to change ratings and see what's gonna happen in a lot of these districts, especially in North Carolina and Ohio. But either way, we'll have to see what happens. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, share your opinion in the comments down below. Share the video with people who you think would enjoy it. Turn on notifications and yeah, check out my non-political channel Interactor127 and my comrades channel Growling Zeus 666, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya, and hopefully it's not so long.